What is sustainable, regenerative grazing and why learn it? Is it easier to grow live plants in live soil, harvested by live animals, or grow live plants in sterile soil, adding in minimal nutrients and water to grow only select seeds, using exhaust-belching heavy equipment? When you add in cattle or other ruminants, you restore life to the soil and use the most efficient harvesters to utilize all of the plant. In very simple terms, row cropping tends to take the life out of the soil and turn it into some sort of mechanical science experiment. An experiment that also loses some more topsoil to erosion every year. Grazing cattle tends to rebuild the soil and make it come alive, if you learn how to mimic Mother Nature. And it can add topsoil in that same way. When a cow grazes, the live biota that survive in the cow's gut to aid digestion wind up back on the ground to rebuild the soil. When you disc and plow and cultivate the soil, you are killing off these biota. Those microorganisms interact with the root structures, minerals and other nutrients to help the plants thrive. The biota travel out through the cattle manure as a natural, ongoing process. Living soils help permaculture crops like perennial and annual forage plants to grow better. Higher quantity and better quality forage means more a sustainable and more profitable grazing operation. The second natural advantage in grazing is the process of laying down more organic matter that retains moisture and provides a space where both plants and biota survive better. Row cropping tends to slowly destroy topsoil by stripping organic matter and not replacing it. This action leaves little porous organic matter to absorb and hold rainfall, which leads to erosion, and further loss of topsoil downstream. Grazing cattle tend to add organic matter as they go. André Voisin said cattle eat with 5 mouths, the one in front, plus the 4 they walk on. Those last 4 trample some of the plants down and into the surface, where they decay and convert into organic matter mulch. Cows are nature's example of the combine. Cows harvest the grass, process it into muscle and fertilizer, and cultivate the ground meanwhile. They are a necessary part of a regenerative trio, along with soil and plants, that work together as a natural trio to preserve and regenerate the land. They emulate the wild grazers such as the buffalo, whose vast herds helped build the thick prairie sod. When you have cattle fattening in a feedlot, they have to exist in their own excrement and eat processed food. Cattle can be grown and matured on just grass alone. When they are able to select what they want to eat from nature's free buffet, they will select the plants they need to eat. And so balance their own diet. Meanwhile, their excreta goes back onto that same soil to enrich it and rebuild it. Their calves grow up on fresh grass, strong and healthy. There is no need for special antibiotics necessary to survive being raised in a man-made, artificial environment. Nature, on its own, with the land kept fallow out of row cropping or grazing, can generate an inch of new topsoil in 100 years. That depends on a lot of factors, like keeping someone from building a house on it for a rural residence. That's also if you don't row crop it and do nothing but pay your taxes on the land you own while keeping it out of production. You can see this in action where absentee landlords have bought worn-out farm land, away from main roads and larger cities, and only use it for their annual hunting vacation. A tax write-off, perhaps. Cattle can generate several inches of new topsoil forming organic matter in just a few years, if managed in a rotational grazing pattern that mirrors the natural patterns of nature. This operation needs few inputs other than inexpensive trace minerals that the cow require to stay healthy. Those trace minerals are missing from the soil, but are simple to provide. The minerals you feed them eventually work their way back to the land itself. Meanwhile, your cattle bear and raise their calves, which then are sold to pay your costs of farming that land. It's the reverse of row cropping, which mines the land of minerals and requires expensive equipment as well as chemicals. As well, row cropping requires equipment belching fumes into the atmosphere. And which is easier on the ears, a diesel engine or a munching cow? Properly done, the process of regenerating the land can be extremely low overhead, nearly all profit. There are other wealth factors present, not just money. Consider this: you can spend a lot of money on equipment and chemicals, or you can take daily walks in nature among contented livestock that greet you with interest as you open yet another paddock for them to graze. Quiet, peaceful. Well, maybe a cow might bellow too close to you as she calls to her calf. You'll know with every pasture walk that you are slowly and regularly improving the land at a low cost and making predictable, sustainable profits. Meanwhile, enjoying almost every minute you spend farming with regenerative grazing. The trick is in learning how to manage this grazing. Get your copy now. Available everywhere.